Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on a pivotal moment for any growing organization. It's that transition when purchasing activities, they once seemed casual, maybe a bit informal, suddenly they swell in complexity and demand real structure, is when ad hoc buying just doesn't cut it anymore, and you realize, okay, we need a dedicated strategy here. Our mission for this deep dive is to guide you through the essential steps to establishing a really robust procurement department. We're drawing key insights from the comprehensive guide, Establishing a Procurement Department, a 5-step guide. This isn't just about, reading a checklist. It's about giving you a practical roadmap.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it isn't just about the obvious things like, say, cutting costs. What's truly transformative is how a well-designed procurement function fundamentally reshapes an organization.
Yeah.
It brings transparency where maybe there was hidden spending before. It significantly reduces operational risks. It strengthens crucial supplier relationships, turning them into genuine partnerships. And ultimately, it creates measurable business value that goes far beyond simply saving a buck. It's about moving from purely transactional buying to, well, truly strategic value creation, viewing every purchase as an opportunity to add to the bottom line.
That's a powerful shift, isn't it? From just trying to save a penny to actually adding strategic value. So how do we begin building that framework? What's the very first step in operationalizing that vision, especially for, a procurement professional trying to elevate their role?
Well, the absolute bedrock, the foundation, is defining your policies. Now, I know it might sound a bit bureaucratic, but without clear enforceable policies, you're essentially operating in the dark. You need to establish rules that everyone, right across the organization, can follow. This ensures consistency and drastically reduces guesswork.
Okay.
And this involves, crucially, defining specific authority levels. And here's a crucial insight often missed. Don't just set arbitrary limits. You really need to tie these expenditure tiers to the actual financial impact and, importantly, the risk profile of the purchase. This allows agility for smaller, routine buys while ensuring, robust oversight for high-value strategic investments.
Right. So like office supplies versus a major software contract.
Exactly. A manager might approve office supplies up to a certain amount, maybe a few $100s, but a new multi-year software license. That would definitely require executive approval, given its long-term financial and operational implications.
That makes perfect sense. But in your experience, what's a common initial resistance organizations face when they first try to formalize these policies? And how can our listeners, the procurement pros out there, overcome that?
Yeah, that's a great question. A huge challenge is often the perceived rigidity. People are used to buying what they need when they need it, maybe with just a quick email approval. So introducing formal policies can feel like adding red tape, like slowing things down.
Right.
The key is to communicate the why behind the what. You have to emphasize how these policies aren't really about hindering work. They're about protecting the organization from fraud, ensuring fair pricing, and ultimately getting better quality and value for every dollar spent. Starting simple, aiming for compliance first, and then evolving the policies as the organization matures, that's often the most successful approach.
So it's really about clear communication and demonstrating the value, not just sort of enforcing rules from on high.
Yeah.
You also mentioned purchase order requirements and standard procedures earlier. Could you elaborate a bit on why those are so vital right from the outset?
Absolutely. Purchase order requirements, POs, they're essentially your organization's contract with the supplier for a specific transaction.
Okay.
Defining when a formal PO becomes mandatory versus when maybe a more direct or informal purchase is acceptable, that's vital for control and traceability. Without a PO, it's incredibly hard to dispute invoices later or even track spending effectively. The general rule of thumb, if money is leaving the organization, a PO should probably be involved, unless it's something like a pre-approved recurring utility payment or similar low-risk item.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then standard procedures for the entire procurement process. So from the initial request for goods or services,
Right.
through the internal approvals, careful supplier selection, the actual ordering, then the critical receipt of goods or services, and ultimately the final payment. All these steps are essential. They ensure a documented, traceable process. They provide an audit trail and significantly reduce the risk of errors or, worse, misuse of funds. It's really the framework that supports everything else we'll talk about.
Okay, so once you've got those essential ground rules established, the policies, the procedures, the natural next question becomes, how do we actually do this every single day?
Yeah.
That's where visualizing and formalizing your procurement workflow comes in, right?
Precisely. And this raises an important question right away. How will procurement actually be structured within the organization? The guide points to a central decision here regarding whether procurement will be primarily centralized, meaning a single department handles all purchasing across the entire organization,
Okay.
or decentralized, where different departments or business units manage their own procurement needs, perhaps with some central oversight. Each model has its pros and cons, naturally. And the right choice really depends heavily on the organization's size, its structure, its culture, and its strategic goals.
That flexibility sounds good in theory, but doesn't a decentralized approach risk losing some of those economies of scale that centralized purchasing often offers? How do organizations typically mitigate that?
That's a fantastic point, and yes, it's a common tension.
Yeah.
A centralized model often excels at leveraging collective buying power, standardization, and building specialized expertise. It's often perfect for, say, a growing mid-sized company looking to optimize spend.
Right.
However, a highly diversified global corporation might lean more decentralized for local market responsiveness, maybe fostering specific innovations or unique vendor relationships that a central team might overlook.
So different needs.
Exactly. To mitigate the risks of fragmented spending in a decentralized model, organizations often implement what's called a center-led approach. This basically means individual departments still handle many day-to-day purchases, but a central procurement team sets the overarching policies, manages key strategic supplier contracts, and offers support and guidance. This ensures some level of control and shared best practices without completely stifling that local autonomy.
Interesting balance.
Yes. But regardless of the model chosen, centralized, decentralized, or center-led, a critical and honestly often overlooked aspect is the receiving process. Establishing clear, documented procedures to verify that goods or services delivered actually match what was on the purchase order is absolutely paramount.
Why is that so critical? Seems like a basic check.
It seems basic, but it's more than just catching simple errors or making sure the right quantity arrived. It's a vital safeguard against more serious issues, like fraud.
Wow, fraud. Have you ever seen a situation where not having a clear receiving process led to a really bizarre or maybe costly mistake for an organization?
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, yes.
Yep.
I recall one client that essentially skipped this step entirely. They trusted their suppliers implicitly. Well, they ended up paying for an entire pallet of empty boxes that was delivered with a legitimate PO number attached. The receiving doc just signed off without checking inside.
No way. Empty boxes.
Empty boxes. Costly mistake. Another time, a company consistently received and paid for damaged goods because there was no formal inspection process required before accepting the delivery. These seemingly small procedural gaps can lead to massive financial leakage, compromised operations, and honestly, a nightmare for inventory management down the line.
Yikes.
So yeah, this step protects the organization's financial assets and upholds its integrity by ensuring payments are only made for what was genuinely ordered and received in good condition. It closes a critical loop in the whole procurement process.
Okay, that really drives home the importance of details.
Okay.
It also sounds like the strength of your supplier relationships can really make or break a procurement department. So what are the key elements to building a truly robust and maybe resilient supplier base?
You're absolutely right. Suppliers are truly at the core of procurement effectiveness and ultimately strategic value. The initial and foundational step here is developing a central supplier database. And listen, this isn't just a basic contact list stored somewhere. It's a strategic asset for your organization. It consolidates crucial information. Core contact details, yes, but also precise product or service categories they offer, essential certifications and compliance data, think ISO certs, diversity status, things like that, and critically, their historical performance. Everything from on-time delivery stats to quality control metrics and even how responsive they are when issues arise. Think of it as your single source of truth for all supplier intelligence.
That sounds incredibly valuable.
It is. And then, for any new suppliers you consider bringing on board, rigorous qualification criteria are absolutely essential.
Sure.
This isn't just a quick check. This should cover comprehensive aspects like their financial stability. You want to ensure they're a reliable long-term partner, right?
Yeah.
Their compliance with all relevant industry and regulatory standards, and definitely securing reliable references from other clients they work with. This structured approach to building and managing your supplier base isn't just about being organized, though that helps. It significantly improves transparency throughout your supply chain. It allows you to proactively manage risk, identify potential vulnerabilities, and it directly supports better, more informed decision-making when you're awarding contracts or negotiating terms.
Right.
Ultimately, this strengthens the resilience and efficiency of your entire supply chain. It's about building long-term, mutually beneficial relationships, not just these transactional encounters.
And speaking of making things flow smoother and more efficiently, let's be honest, relying solely on spreadsheets and manual approvals just can't keep up in today's complex world. This is where technology really steps in to transform everything for procurement professionals, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Modern procurement, to be truly effective, demands robust